Good morning. How are you guys doing today? Good. All right. How are you guys doing today? Good. All right. That's okay. Stick around after the message. Have some coffee. Have some donuts. You'll feel better. So I'm so glad you guys are here today and that you joined us. You saw my wife. She was just standing up here. She did the prayer and the announcements. That's my wife, Carolina. And before I met Carolina, I lived in Boston for a few years. This was years before I had ever met her. And I actually had a waitering job at a chain called Bennigan's. You've probably heard of that restaurant chain. And there is one in the theater district in downtown Boston. And that's the one I worked at. And so I was working like kind of a day shift, early evening. And I'm there. I was actually behind the bar at that time because I bartended a little bit. And this lovely woman came up as I'm doing some things, getting some glasses. She walks up to the bar. She's smiling at me. She's blonde hair. She has like a bob cut. You know, ladies know what it is, really short cut on her hair. And I said, hey, ma'am, I'll be with you in 1 minute. And I turned around to go do some other tasks that I was planning on doing. And as you know, guys, as we do tasks, things just kind of go through our minds. And suddenly, as I'm doing stuff, I'm working, focusing, and my mind is thinking, that lady looked really familiar. You know, this is going on in my mind, right? And as I'm thinking a little bit more, I'm like, wait a minute, that looked a lot like my girlfriend. And so then wait a minute, I think it was. I turn around to see these two glaring eyes staring at me, and she's upset. You didn't even recognize me. And I'm like, yeah, but you just cut your hair. Now, if you were here the very first Sunday we ever talked about this, I had a similar experience with the woman changing her hair on me in the middle of the moment, right? And she shows up, and I'm like, well, I just didn't notice it was your hair. And she's like, you didn't recognize me. How could you not recognize your own girlfriend? And she is so mad at me, and she's mad at me for the rest of the day. And I'm just thinking, it's not like I cheated on you, right? It's like I didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't notice that it was you under that new haircut of yours. You ever notice that women, when they get a haircut, it's like this crazy deal when you come home, isn't it? Guys, you know what I'm talking about. You're kind of a little bit nervous because you're not sure what to say when they show up. And this was going on. I didn't even know it. And the fact that I didn't recognize her made it even worse. It just compounded the thing. And if you're a guy and you're kind of confused, it happens the same thing with women. They get confused with guys, right? Sometimes understanding the opposite sex gets a little bit confusing, doesn't it? I remember this time, and I was just so confused, and I was wishing I could figure it out. Like, how can I understand this a little bit better? Because inside, I felt like I was innocent. I didn't do anything wrong, but like, how can I clear this up for you? You know, women and men are so different. And it's not just the physical differences. Those are obvious. If you guys are looking around, we'd say, yeah, we know that. But there's also these other issues. They're mental, emotional, all these other issues that are different. And there are things that a man does that leave a woman wondering if he's crazy, okay? And there are things that a woman does that leave a man wondering, what in the world does she want, okay? You've probably all been there at one point or another in a relationship. The woman says, nothing's wrong. And sometimes she means nothing is wrong. But sometimes when she says nothing is wrong, something is actually wrong, right? Ladies, some of you are shaking your head smiling, and the guy doesn't know which is which. That's the problem. We're like, that is insane. It's the same way with men or women. Women look at men, and they're like, I've told him to take the trash out 100 times. He knows this. We've been married for 10 years. Why doesn't he take the trash out? And we're going to answer that question next week, okay? But they're wondering, or he comes home with some idea, and they're thinking, like, are you nuts? We already talked about this. How can you be wanting to do what we already talked about? And so there are these things that we just find mysterious about the other sex. The difference between men and women are so obvious, and especially if you've been in a relationship. It actually sparked this book, and if you may have heard of it, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It was written in 1992 by a man named Dr. John Gray, and that was to help men and women understand these differences that men and women have with each other. These differences sometimes can seem like a practical joke that God has played on humanity, right? Do you ever think about that? I mean, when God created the heavens and the earth, He set in motion a plan. In the first chapter of Genesis, it reads this. It's in your outline. You have it in that program, but it's also up here on the screen. There you go. Thank you. So God created human beings in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. Then God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it." So he's talking about, I created both men and women in my image, but then he says this plan for the both of you, populate the earth. I mean, the only way to populate the earth is to make sure that these two very different people actually get along. I mean, think about it for a moment. The survival of the planet is dependent upon men and women getting along, right? You're like, are you sure you wanted to do this, God? Are you sure? Because I don't always understand the woman, and she's saying the same thing about the man. And if you've been married a little bit, you might have understood this. But not only did he say that we should populate the earth, but he takes it one step further. In the same area of Genesis, he says, you're supposed to become one with that other person. Listen to what he says. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So not only do we have a mission, but he's saying, okay, I want the two of you who are so different and don't understand each other to become one. I mean, this is like an impossibility. It is. It's an impossibility. And if you've been married, you understand that. You go, I'm not even sure how that happens. If you've been married or you're in a relationship or you're in hopes of having a relationship, you know this challenge. And not only that, let's just add to the fact that we're two imperfect people, right? Let's forget about the differences, but we're also imperfect people coming together, trying to be one, and we're supposed to get along. And so this may seem a little bit confusing, but there is a way for you and me to have the relationship we want, for the impossible to become possible. With all the messiness of our individual flaws, with the confusion of our different expectations that we have as men and women, the challenge of loving another person who's flawed just like you, it all comes together for a beautiful mess, and God can make it possible in your life. So we're starting this brand new series. You saw the little thing up here before. It's called To Become One, How God Makes the Impossible Possible. And we're going to discover today that there is actually a way to understand the opposite sex. And not only that, we'll understand God's plan for marriage. And we'll also discover how to find God's best for that relationship that you have. This series is for every single person that's sitting here today. 83% of women and 77% of men get married. It's actually a little higher than that, and it's really hard to find statistics because if you look in statistics, people in the 80s, like 90% have been married. That means almost everybody here will be married at one point in their life. And if not, that other 10%, whatever it is, you're probably going to be in some type of relationship. So this is very important for you and me to understand what the other person is like. If you can commit to being here, and you guys are going to decide, I'm going to grasp hold of some of the things that I hear today and hear this week and during these next series. If you say, I'm going to keep coming because I want to keep learning, then God's going to be able to do a work in the relationship that you have with that person. Almost every guy at one point or another has wondered this: what do women want? Okay, at one point in our lives, we've asked that question, whether it was out loud or in our minds or in the discussion with other men around a water cooler. Some women have wondered what they want. Okay, my wife was up here saying that. One time I asked my wife, we were having an argument. I was extremely frustrated. She was frustrated. I finally said, honey, what is it that you want? And she said, I don't know. If she doesn't know, how are we going to get to the bottom and fix these situations? You see, the world, though, is going to give you mixed signals, okay? And it's going to ask us to sometimes deny who God has designed us to be. And I want you to, for today, to go, okay, I'm going to not think about what the world is trying to tell me, but I'm going to think about what God is trying to tell me. And if we can come with an open mind and a willingness to honestly explore what we hear in this series, it has the power to change us. And it has the power to improve our relationships. Why? Because you're going to understand yourself better. You're going to understand your partner better, and you're going to understand God's design for marriage. And so these first 2 weeks, we're going to answer, what does a woman want, and what does a man want? What does the husband want? What does the wife want? And there is a question that every man asks his whole life. And there is also a question that every woman is asking her whole life. And we will discover that the core relationship need of each, the husband and the wife, the woman and the man. And so when Carolina and I started dating, I remember it was one of the first dates that we went out, and she told me this: John, first off, I want you to take me to someplace nice, and I want you to shower and get dressed. And when you show up, I am going to be dressed up, and I want you to look at me, and I want you to tell me how beautiful I look. This is not a joke. This is what my wife said. Some of you ladies are like, yes, preach it, Carolina. Why did she do that? Why did my wife do that? It's the same reason that little girls play dress up. It's the same reason that teens spend so much time in their clothes, their hair, and their makeup. She wanted to be the object of my desire. They are asking one question that they need an answer to, and the question is this. If you pull out your outline and you fill it in, it's going to help you. You want to take these notes with you. Trust me. The question a woman asks her whole life is, am I desirable? Am I desirable? You know, I see this in my daughters. And if you've had daughters, you've seen it too. My little girls, from the first time they could put on a dress, as early as I can remember, as early as they could walk, they would come and start twirling in this little dress. Have you ever seen it, right? We see them twirling around. And not only that, they would say, Daddy, Daddy, look at me. Look at me. How beautiful am I? Even from the beginning, my daughters needed to see me watching them and affirming that they're beautiful. It's something that God has planted inside of them. You know what's funny? My son, Woody, he's never asked me to do that to him. Not that he ever wears dresses, okay? But he's never said, Dad, don't I look handsome? Don't I look beautiful? No, he always asks a different question. He wants to see, he wants to show me how awesome he is or how strong he is, right? Or how tough he is. And that's something totally different. We're going to talk about more next week, okay, when we get into that. But this is a question that will surface in a woman's life, her whole life long, this question. It's not just because when they're little. It recurs over and over and over throughout her whole life. She wants to know this. And by the way, this is not simply, am I beautiful? She wants to know, am I desirable on the outside? Am I desirable on the inside? In personality, everything. It's the whole package. And there isn't a point where this question is answered once and for all in a woman's mind. You guys make me going, really? No, it's true. She's always asking this question inside of herself. And just like the man's question, he will ask it his whole life too. And we'll talk about that next week, and you're going to understand it, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, that explains a lot. And the only person who can really answer this question for a woman, don't throw tomatoes, is a man, is the truth of the matter. Because other women can't answer this question for her. Her sisters can't answer their question. Her mother can't answer this question. Her daughters can't answer this question. It's so funny when you see them, they will affirm a woman all the time. You know, even I decided to watch as people were coming in today. I never saw a man say, you look beautiful or handsome today, okay? But you know how many women said that? What a beautiful dress. I love your hair. I love that necklace. Everything, affirming, 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 and they do it all the time. Every time we go someplace, guys, you see it all the time. You're popping up in your head right now. Why? Because they understand that this question must be answered for the other woman all the time. And so they're constantly affirming that in the other person. The only problem is that really they want the object of their desire to desire them. So the man has to answer that question for the woman. Listen, dads, I want you to know this. If you're a dad and you have a little girl out here, okay, and there's some of you here, this is so primary for your daughter that you as a dad affirm her beauty as she's growing up. When they're dancing in front of you, you need to affirm that beauty. When they say, how did this look? You need to say, you look beautiful. You need to keep affirming that woman constantly. Because if you don't affirm her beauty, the first guy that comes along will. And she'll end up with a guy, whether he's good for her or not. And we've seen it so many times in other places where the man hasn't affirmed it for her. So she gets the first guy that shows up. She's like, yes, who tells her she's beautiful, who tells her she's cute, who tells her she's funny. He goes, yes, I'm with you, even if it's not the right guy. And so guys, dads, you want to be answering that question for her, not some other guy. Take her on a date, just the two of you. When you go on a date, my daughters want to go on a date with me. And I can go together with some of them sometimes, but I have to take them individually. Because when I take time out, they're saying, wow, Daddy really wants to spend time with me. Daddy thinks I'm something because he's willing to go out of his way to get up early, to take me, to spend money on me, and just spend time alone. And that's what she's longing for, and that's what we need to do. And that's why you hear dads take your daughters out on dates, because it's so important for them to go, yes, I am beautiful, I am loved. Women are constantly asking this question. Without even trying, this happens automatically in her life. Just trust me on this. It comes up and she's not even thinking about it. When she comes home with a new haircut, what is she really asking? Do you still love me even though I got this haircut? She may not like it. It may not look good, or it may look great, but she wants to look beautiful for you, and she wants you to know that. When she buys shoes or clothing, we're like, why do you need more clothing? Why does she go to her closet and say, well, I don't have enough to wear here? These are the same old clothes, because she wants to look beautiful. When a woman asks you, does this outfit make me look fat? Every man hates that question, okay? Because we don't know how to win, right? We're like, oh no, it's a trap, man, run, right? Play dead, hope she'll walk away. We don't know how to answer that question because we don't understand what's going on behind the question. We often fail to answer this question correctly because we don't understand what's happening. She's not asking, do I look presentable to go to this event or whatever it is? That's not the question she's really asking. If she really wants to know that, she'll ask kind of a different question. Do these match? Okay? There are some other questions she will ask that maybe will tip you off. But when she says something else, she wants to know, is she beautiful? She's looking in the mirror, but the mirror isn't telling her what she needs to know. You are the mirror in her life. And when she's standing there, guys, you look beautiful. Am I fat? Honey, I love you just the way you are. Right? That's what she needs to hear. Listen, if you respond fine or okay, it's not going to answer the question for her. In that moment, you don't understand why she's upset with you or why she's off that day because she needed to be affirmed. And she needs to be affirmed by you. I don't know why this happens, but when my wife gets dressed up in lingerie, I move in to hug her and kiss her, and she goes, hold on. I want you to look at it for a minute. Oh, someone else too. I'm not the only one, right? She puts her hands out. Listen, guys, when you get a Christmas present, do you worry about the wrapping? Guys just want to rip it off and get to what's underneath. That's what everybody wants, right? We're not worried about the wrapping, ladies, okay? This is what's going on in the man's mind. But the lady says, no. Hold on. I want you to think of me as your desire, right? She wants you to leave that on for a while because you're affirming her beauty. You're affirming that this is what I want. I want you. I desire you. That's what she's asking. She wants a reaction from you, not just take this off. It's crazy, but it's true. And it starts to answer some of the questions you and I may have when it comes to the women in our life. Why is she going nuts over this haircut thing? Why is she crazy about what she's dressing up in? Why is this happening? Because she needs to know that you love her and that you desire. I'm going to tell you a secret right now I'm going to tell you that every woman here wants from you. She wants to believe that there is no other woman on this planet for you. And that's the truth. And if you go home and ask her today, she will tell you the truth. Because that's what she's thinking inside. She can't help it. That's the way she is designed. What can you do? Start by understanding that she wants you to affirm her. And try to understand the difference when you see her, right? If she comes out in a bathing suit, tell her she looks amazing. Whether she tells you this or not, she wants you to know that she's the most desirable. She wants to know that she's the most desirable woman in your life, period. How do we affirm her beauty on a daily basis? How we react when we see another woman walk by tells her, am I the most beautiful woman in your life, right? How we talk to her. All of these things have an effect on how we're answering that question in her life. When you leave that question unanswered, it will create anxiety inside of her, and she won't tell you about it. But it'll exist. That anxiety will exist. And you know it does when you haven't affirmed her and you live the rest of that day with her and she isn't quite right. And you're wondering, baby, did I do something wrong? Did I do something wrong, honey? What's wrong? Nothing. No, that's a time when something is wrong, okay? Listen, even simply holding her hand, out of the blue. You're driving down the street in the car. Reach over and grab her hand. My wife loves it when I do that. Sometimes she initiates. I want you to hold my hand today. A kiss on the cheek as you're walking out the door that she didn't expect. And guys, a lot of these have to be kind of non-sexual because if you think it's only about getting sex, then she doesn't really believe that you love her and value her the way she needs to be valued. Sometimes the way you look at her. She wants that question answered regularly. And when you do, when you answer that question on a regular basis for her, it'll change your relationship. You watch. King Solomon, he writes this book in the Song of Solomon, and it's a love letter between a man and a wife, or a man and a woman who are in a romance. In today's world, if you go into the Bible and read the Song of Solomon, it would get an X rating, maybe even an R rating or an X rating, okay, for sexual content. It's an incredible romance between the beloved, who is the prince, and this Shulamite woman. Listen to the man's affirmation of the woman. He says, "You are beautiful, my darling, beautiful beyond words. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair falls in waves like flocks of goats winding down the slopes of Gilead." I can only imagine that flocks of goats is really a beautiful sight. I don't know. You have captured my heart, my treasure, my bride. You hold it hostage with one glance of your eyes, with a single jewel of your necklace. Your love delights me, my treasure, my bride. Your love is better than wine, your perfume more fragrant than spices. Your lips are as sweet as nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. Your clothes are scented like the cedars of Lebanon. You are my private garden, my treasure, my bride, a secluded spring, a hidden fountain. So he says this to the woman, and watch how she responds. Come into your garden, my love. Taste its finest fruits. Yeah, that means exactly what you think it means right there. When you affirm her beauty, she is at ease. It puts her at ease. It answers that question. That anxiety dissipates so that she can be comfortable with you. When the woman feels desired, you're going to answer that question, and she needs that question answered every single day. A man and a woman will also have a core relationship need, and they are both different for the man and the woman. The core relationship need of every woman is to feel loved. It's to feel loved. Everyone wants to feel loved. It's true. Guys do too, okay? It's the truth. But it's a core need for a woman. You have to understand this. When Carolina and I first got married, she constantly asked me the question, do you love me? And maybe you experienced that yourself. Do you love me? Do you love me? And it was in those beginning years especially, she would ask me constantly. I felt like I was saying it all day long. At night, I would kiss her good night. I would say, I love you. I'd turn out the light, roll over in the covers, and in the dark I would hear, do you love me? It happened. That was true life. I would say, yes, I do love you. There is a need inside of her to have that question answered. It's her core need in her relationship is to feel loved. There's this famous section in the book of Ephesians on marriage, chapter 5, okay? And Paul takes this time to help us with our marriages. And he's saying the things that are most important between a man and a woman getting along and what's important for their marriage. And you'd think it'd be filled with this instruction, that it wouldn't even be half a chapter, but it'd be like 5, 10 chapters telling and instructing the man on what to do and what the woman to do. But instead, he only gives simple 2 commands. 2 commands, one for the husband and one's for the wife. Listen to what he says to the husbands. Husband, love your wives. Love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with the water through the word, and to present to her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. This is kind of interesting because he gives one admonition to the man. Love your wife. And you might think, of course, everyone should do that. But it's funny, we didn't read it, but the instruction to the woman isn't to love the husband. It's something else. And we're going to talk about that, like I said, next week. Because this is her relationship core need, to feel loved. I've done many premarital counselings. As I said before, I was a pastor for 19 years at another church, and I did so many premarital counselings. And I remember this one couple coming in particular. And we're going over this section, the core need of the husband and the wife. And I'm talking about that she needs to feel loved and needs to feel loved every day. And the groom says to her, I asked the groom, when's the last time you said, I love you? And he says, I don't remember, but she knows I love her. You ever hear that? Yeah. She knows I love her. And I said, listen, buddy, that's not going to cut it. You need to tell her every day. And I look over her and she's like, yes, you do. And I've seen it time and time again. The guy thinks, hey, that's it. That's good enough. There's some books. If you go to your outline, I want to show you on the back page, I think it's the 3rd page. Go there for a minute. There's 2 book recommendations that I have for you. Guys, it's a really small book, but the book for you is for men only. It's going to help you understand women. Listen, it's simple to read. And that QR code will simply, if you scan it, will bring you right to Amazon so you can order it from your seat or at home or wherever you want. But I want you to read that book. And the other one, ladies, is for you. It's called Captivating. You're going to love it, by John and Stasi Eldredge. And it's just going to help you even understand yourself better and what it means to be a woman in this world from a biblical standpoint. But in the first book, Shaunti and Jeff Feldhahn did many surveys to find out and discover more about men and women. And they discovered this in one survey, that 80% of women always ask the question, does he really love me? 80% are asking that question, does he really love me? Because when they didn't, this is what this question it promoted in them. 80% it felt that they felt feeling anxious, preoccupied, emotionally withdrawn, unvalued, or depressed. Guys, for a moment, if your wife feels that way, 80% of her feels that way, do you want her feeling anxious, preoccupied, emotional, withdrawn, unvalued, or depressed? And you may say, listen, I don't feel that way. That's because it's not your core need, but it is hers. And if you understand that that's her core need, then we need to show her and affirm that too, that she is loved on a regular basis. Men focus on income and possessions because it's so much easier for us to measure those things than it is to measure loving attention, isn't it? It's so much easier to say, well, I brought home this, or I did that for you, or I raked the lawn, I washed your car. It's so much easier to do those instead of saying, what does it actually mean to give you love and attention? Because that's something we can't put our finger on. And it's difficult for a man because the question he is asking next week, it doesn't answer it for us very easy. So for guys, we have to kind of supersede what we think we should be answering and answer her question instead of ours, which means she needs to be loved. Loving attention. God gives us the formula for your wife's heart. Right here in the scriptures. He repeats it at the end of this section. I put it in your outline again. He says it one more time. Go ahead, throw it up on the screen. One more verse. Well, it's in your outline. Each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself. This is the admonition for you and me. If you don't believe me, just ask your wife when you get home today. Just go, hey, or on the car ride home. Emotional security for her is more important than financial security will ever be. It will. She would rather be poor with you and feel your love than rich with you and not feel it. And that's the truth. Women, tell your husband, by the way, when he asks you, tell him what he wants. He may not be ignoring you because sometimes this isn't on the man's mind. It's not the question he has. And so sometimes he's a little in the dark about it. It's the truth. He doesn't really know. He wants to show you love. Most men want to do that. We want to because God's kind of placed that in our hearts. But we just haven't realized how to do that. Carolina was working and she had this friend. And this woman was on a dating with this guy. They were playing like football tag together. They were kind of friends and they were getting together and it was getting a little bit closer, the relationship. And she goes, yeah, but I don't want him to take me out as friends. I want him to take me out like on a real date. I want him to not take me to McDonald's, but to take me to a nice restaurant. And all this stuff, I want him to get dressed up. He's always wearing t-shirts and shorts and stuff. And so Carol says, well, why don't you just tell him? She's like, what? Yeah, tell him. Tell him what you want, just like she did to me. Bring me flowers. Take me to a nice place. Dress up. Tell him all these things. She goes, well, I don't want to tell him that. Why not? Because if I have to tell him, then it doesn't mean he really loves me. Right, ladies? That's what we think. If I have to tell him to do it, that means it's not true. Listen, he may not know. And you guys say, I can't believe he doesn't know. Listen, give the man a pass. He's not asking the same question you're asking. Why don't you just tell him what you want and then give him the chance to prove it? How about that? Right? And then you guys both win. Don't keep it a secret. Help him out. He needs your help. Sometimes we assume he knows what we want, but give him the chance, all right? Give him the chance by telling him what you want. Listen, this is the third point. We're almost done here, but she needs to be pursued every day. Your wife, your significant other, that woman in your life needs to be pursued every day. From a man perspective is this, baby, I love you. When I told you we got married, if anything changes, I'll let you know, right? That's kind of what we think. Guys are like, I told you I loved you. If it ever changes, you'll be the first to know, and then we can go with that. But that doesn't work for a woman. It may work for a guy, but it's not going to work for a woman. We think that one time is going to work. And sometimes, guys, we also think this. The bigger the deal we make of that moment that we showed her love, we took her out on a date, and we brought a limo, and we brought flowers, and we took her to a nice restaurant, and we took the day off from work, and we're thinking, man, this is getting me so many points with her, it's going to last for a month long, right? Guys, I got to break it to you. For all of that, you're going to get 1 point. Do you hear the ladies laughing? Because the truth is, you get 1 point for that. You would think, and this is how guys think. Ladies, just want you to know, because it was with me when I was young. I'm going to so blow away this girl when I'm in high school. I'm going to get her flowers, and I'm going to get on my knees, and I'm going to write her a poem, and I'm going to do all this. And you know what you get if you do that? 1 point. 1 point is all you get for all of that. And you know what happens the next day? The counter goes to 0 again. It's true. It's true. Guys, it is better, not to say don't do one of those things, okay? I'm not saying don't do it, but don't expect that that's going to last. What you need to do, it's better to do things every single day, smaller things every single day, if that's what it takes for you to get the thing done. We tend to think it'll all be done, that one day we can make up for it in one day, but it's not going to happen that way. When you dated, you did all those things, didn't you, for your spouse? When you were dating them, took them out, wowed them, showed them great things, got dressed up, put on deodorant, right? Brushed your teeth, all this stuff. And the man sits back after he gets married and he's like, okay, now all I have to do is sit back and rest. I won the woman. Because he answered his question. He's all done. And he's sitting there going, it's all set. I don't have to do any more of that. I got her, right? But that's not what she thinks at all. Think about this for a moment, just for a moment. While she is dating you, she's thinking, this is what I'm getting when I get married. Think about that for a moment. She's dating you, and she's like, I'm dating this guy to find out what he's like. He's nice. He's thinking of me. He's doing all these things. This is what I'm going to get when I get married. Listen, I'm going to put it in a way that you guys are totally going to understand, okay? When you go to buy a car, right? When you went to buy a car, you're looking at the car that you want with its features. Maybe it's got a bigger engine. Maybe it's got the sports package. Maybe it has a roof that rolls back, all that stuff, right? And you go and you're looking at this car. You're talking with the dealer. You're going through it all, and you say, that's the car that I want. And then he sells you the car, and you go, wait a minute. My car had the sports package on it. And this isn't even the same model. He's like, yeah, I just did all that to sell you the car. How would you feel? Right? You'd feel like, wait a minute, I got ripped off. That's not it at all. You said you were going to sell me this. And it happens the same way for a woman. I know it sounds strange, okay? But your wife wants to be pursued. She wants to be pursued. I am grateful that my wife is very honest with me. She just tells me flat out, I want you to pursue me. She does not keep any bones about it. She doesn't hold anything back. She just tells me. There will never be a day when your wife feels permanently loved. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. She needs to feel it every single day, day to day, that you are choosing her all over again and again and again. This happened to me more than once. It's happened a few times that just has driven me nuts, that we would go on a family vacation. We'd spend a few $1,000s on this vacation. We get back, and it's like the Monday or Tuesday, my wife sits down with me, she looks at me, and she goes, we never spend any time together. Baby, I just spent $2,000, $3,000 on this vacation. We were together the whole weekend long. I wasn't working. I wasn't doing anything else at home. I spent it with you. And she's like, that doesn't count. That was with my family, right? With our kids. It happened more than once. Your wife does not consider family time with her. I just want you to know that. It's not going to cut it. See, for a guy, it's like, well, I was in the proximity with you. We were doing things together. That satisfied my need, but not hers. Your wife wants to be just alone with you. And guys, try to get the TV out of the way, because TV time doesn't count either. I'm just going to tell you. If you do this and you think, I just spent an hour with my wife, she doesn't think that at all. I'm just telling you. That didn't happen. Your wife wants to be pursued. She wants you to pursue her on a daily basis. You may be thinking, man, John, the list of everything and the point system, it sounds exhausting. How do I do this? Listen, I'll be honest with you. She's not asking for a lot. It's the smallest thing that you do every day is enough to fill that tank for that day. And if you don't know what those things are, man, just sit down with her and say, honey, what is it that makes you feel pursued? What is it makes you feel loved? And if you're honest, and she's honest, she's going to tell you. And my wife says, John, you don't have to do a lot. Sometimes can you just pat me on the butt? Oh, I can do that. Yeah. Can you tell me you love me? Yeah, that's not too hard. Can you just out of the blue, be thinking of me? I'd love to say things to my wife because I've been learning, I've been studying, and just be like, baby, when you did that, I love that. Oh, really? She goes, yeah, you'll be amazed at the response that you get from your wife. Hey, baby, did you get your hair cut? Honey, I love the way that dress falls. I'll just confess this. She was working at the computer yesterday, putting together the video, the bumper, we call the bumper. And she's doing this, working hard, and her shoulder strap from her bra was right over here. And I said, I look over and I see it. I could have just ignored it, right? But I said, baby, you're looking really sexy. You letting that fall down on purpose? And she just started giggling like crazy. All right? That wasn't hard. It didn't cost me anything to do it. And she was just like smiling for the rest of the day, happily doing the video. You know, it's like, all right. Guys, when he asks you the question, tell him. Just give him a break. Tell him, listen, I want you to bring flowers once a month. You know, when you take out the garbage, this is what it means to me, that you're thinking about me. If you change the perspective of what you're trying to gain from him, he's going to be like happy to do it because it's also built in him to want to win the heart of the woman. It's in there. Men here, I just want to tell you, this is also your opportunity. This is your opportunity. Listen to what Peter, he's writing, different apostles writing this. Come on, put it up on the screen right here, right now, in 1 minute. In the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should so your prayers will not be hindered. I love this thing because in general, we can probably all admit that women are not physically as strong as men. And in a culture where might makes right, we can decide, well, she's not going to budge me. I'm not going to do whatever she wants. And we can stand our ground and do whatever we want. But it'll never answer the question that's on her heart, am I desirable? It will never make her feel loved if we do that. We have an opportunity to dwell with our wives with understanding. What does that mean? That's what I love about this verse. Dwell with your wife with understanding. Understand what her needs are and then try to meet them. But if we go through our relationships not understanding or refusing to understand, you'll never answer this question. You'll never make her feel loved, and she will always feel anxious and always feel undesired. It's the reason that sometimes men come home and the wife's like, I can't do this anymore. Wait a minute, I thought everything was good. Because underneath that question hasn't been answered, and she doesn't know how to tell you. And the guy goes, well, this seems like it's out of the blue. And instead, if you answer that question every day, there's not going to be that anxiety in her heart. And you're going to see what it does to the woman, how it changes her. Man, that means don't do what you would do in the relationship. Do what she needs you to do. Because when I start thinking, what would I do? I usually get off. I start thinking, what does she need? Because if you understand this about the woman, you'll be able to answer so many questions and avoid so many of these situations that cause strife in a relationship. She doesn't think the way you do, and to be honest, she never will. Because that's the way she's created. And you're created differently too. I want to close with this story. It appeared in Women's Day in like 1966 and then in Reader's Digest in 1988. And it's about this guy called Johnny Lingo and the 8-cow wife. And so this woman's writing this story, and she goes to a Pacific island of Kinawata, and there's like 2 twin islands there. And when she's there, she's asking people like what to do, and they're like, well, you need to talk to Johnny Lingo, because Johnny Lingo, he will show you where the best fishing spots are, where to go get pearls and go diving for those oysters, or where to go have the most fun. And he also is the best bargainer guy around. He's like makes the best deals. Like he can get you the deal, so just let him do all the talking. And as they're talking about this, they talk about his wife. You say, do you know that he actually paid the most for a wife on the island? So when you were going to do a dowry, they would pay for the wife by giving cows. And if you paid for a 2-cow wife, that would be she was kind of fair to midland looking, right? But if you paid for 4 or 5s, that was highly good looking wife, right? But he paid an unimaginable amount, which was 8 cows for his wife. And the people were shocked because this girl, Sarita, who he liked, and he went to the father to pay the cows, was like, she's not that good looking. Everybody considered her below average, and they're like, why would you pay 8 cows for this woman? And so he took her to the other island where he lived, and the woman went to go visit her to find out what was going on. And when she got there, she's expecting to see kind of like a homely-looking woman as his wife and going, I can't believe this. And he shows up, and this woman looks beautiful. She's gorgeous. She's radiant. She walks with like this glow about her. And so she's asking, why did you pay 8 cows? And he said this, I'm going to quote it from the story. He says, many things can change a woman, but the thing that matters most is what she thinks of herself. In Kinawata, Sarita believed she was worth nothing in that island. Now she knows she's worth more than any other woman in the islands. I wanted to marry Sarita, and I loved her and no other woman. I wanted an 8-cow wife. Guys, if you want an 8-cow wife, you have to treat her like an 8-cow wife. And she becomes what you've desired. If this message today sounds too much like a woman has no self-worth without men, that's not the case. Women need men and men need women to complete any relationship. It's mutual. God has created them both to go together. And when God created, every day He declared it was good. On the first day it was good. On the second day it was good. And He gets through the whole week and it's good. But then He comes to this. It's in your outline. It's on the screen here. Then the Lord said, it's not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper who is just right for him. It's not good for us to be alone. You see, it's not about one person or the other. It's just about understanding the desires and the hopes of our spouse. Because it's God who gives you self-worth in the end of everything. And without Him, nothing else will make sense. And I just kind of want to close with this. If you've never decided to give your life to Jesus Christ, He's the only one that can fill you to the core with self-worth. Because He's the one that completes us. He's the one who said all that shame and all the mistakes that you've made that make you feel like you may not be worthy, I've erased them all for you because I died on the cross to take them away. So that you can be with me forever, because that's how much I loved you. And that's how much I cared for you. That He gave Himself for you. And if today you've never said that, I'd just like to help you invite God into your heart to change your future forever so that you can be one with God. And the way to do that is simply a prayer to invite Him in. And if that's you today, I just want you to repeat this prayer. I'm going to ask everybody just to repeat it out loud so no one has to pray it alone. Just repeat these words. Dear God, I invite You inside to be my God, my Savior, and my friend. Forgive me of my sins. Wash me clean. I've decided today to follow You, Jesus, from this day forever. I'm Yours. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Let's clap loud.